You didn't find this video, it found you. And the moment you pressed play, something ancient in you awakened. Feel it, the subtle pulse beneath your thoughts, the echo of timelines rearranging themselves around this very moment. You are not here by coincidence, you are being remembered by the field that knows your name beyond time. This is the signal your higher self sent before you ever knew to look. Stay present, because what you are about to feel isn't information, it's initiation. The quantum shift begins the instant awareness meets the message, and that moment is now. The field remembers you, it always has, even in the moments you thought you were lost, even when the noise of ordinary life buried the pulse of something infinite beneath your skin. It never stopped calling your name. Not the name you answer to in this world, but the vibration that existed before sound itself. Every flicker of de vue, every strange coincidence, every whisper in the quiet hours was the field murmuring, I am still here, and so are you. You didn't need to earn your way back to it. You only needed to become still enough to notice that it never left. The quantum field doesn't forget alignment. It waits with infinite patience, humming softly beneath all the chaos, holding the blueprint of every version of you that ever could be. When you begin to feel that faint hum again, it can feel like rediscovering a forgotten melody. At first, it seems distant, an echo, a memory of something familiar but impossible to name. But the more you allow your attention to rest in that space between thoughts, the louder it becomes. You realize that it isn't outside of you, it's emanating from within. The same frequency that holds galaxies together, the same intelligence that guides stars into being, is quietly radiating from the core of your awareness. The quantum shift isn't about learning something new, it's about remembering what the field has always known, that you are woven from the same fabric as creation itself. The field remembers you in the way light remembers its source. It doesn't need to search for you, it simply shines until you turn toward it again. Every cell in your body is already tuned to its vibration, waiting for your consciousness to say yes. When that happens, a strange warmth begins to spread, not emotional in the ordinary sense, but vibrational. It's recognition. The moment awareness remembers itself, energy begins to rearrange. You can feel it as tingling, as calm, as tears that appear for no reason at all. It is the field whispering, welcome back. You were never separate. This remembering is not dramatic. It doesn't arrive as thunder or vision. It's a quiet re-entry into the frequency of truth. And yet, everything starts to look different. The same room, the same sky, the same people, all reflecting something ancient and radiant back to you. The mind tries to make sense of it, to capture it in language. But the moment you name it, it slips through words. That's because remembering isn't a thought, it's a state. The quantum field isn't accessed through belief, it's accessed through coherence. And coherence begins when the noise of striving dissolves into the stillness of being. You may ask, if the field remembers me, why did I forget? Because forgetting was part of the design. Consciousness longed to experience itself from the inside out, to step into limitation so it could rediscover its own infinity. The forgetting wasn't punishment, it was play, the divine curiosity of existence expressing itself through human eyes. And now, as you awaken, you're not ascending to somewhere higher, you're re-expanding into what was always here. Awakening isn't movement, it's revelation. When you remember that, the world begins to organize itself differently. Situations that once drained you lose their power. People who once mirrored your pain begin to shift or fade. New opportunities appear, not because you forced them, but because the field is recalibrating to match your frequency of remembrance. The external world becomes less like a battlefield and more like a mirror reflecting your returning coherence. It's as if life itself exhales in relief, saying, finally, you're back online. You might feel a strange combination of peace and intensity during this phase. Peace, because you've touched something eternal. Intensity, because everything that's not aligned with it begins to unravel. This is the paradox of remembrance. It soothes you even as it disrupts you. Old patterns, emotional residues, unconscious loops. They begin to surface, not to punish, but to be integrated. The field doesn't erase your humanity, it sanctifies it. It reminds you that every shadow was simply light exploring its contrast. The more you surrender to this remembering, the less you need to prove, control, or chase. You begin to live from resonance rather than reaction. The need to defend yourself fades, because what is infinite cannot be threatened. The need to seek validation dissolves, because the field's recognition is enough. You realize that every desire you ever had was simply an echo of the original desire. the longing to return to coherence. And now that you've found it, even temporarily, you understand that no external achievement can compare to the feeling of being aligned with your own source. It becomes clearer that the field has never been outside of you. Your awareness is the lens through which it experiences itself. The observer and the observed were never two. You don't reach the field, you reveal it. You don't create energy, you remember you are it. This is the quiet revolution of consciousness that begins the moment you awaken. Nothing outwardly needs to change, yet everything inwardly does, and the outer must follow. And as this realization deepens, a new rhythm begins to emerge in your life. A rhythm not dictated by fear or urgency, but by flow. Synchronicities multiply. You think of someone and they appear. You release an old burden and a door opens effortlessly. It's not magic, it's mechanics. The universe was always responding to your frequency. Now that your signal is clear, it responds with precision. The field, which once seemed distant and mystical, now feels intimate, almost familiar, like an old friend whose presence you had forgotten how to feel. In this space, gratitude becomes natural, not forced. It's the gratitude of recognition, the relief of remembering who you are. You begin to look at life not as a series of problems to solve, but as a series of patterns unfolding in perfect timing. Even the challenges reveal themselves as initiations designed to strengthen your coherence. And the more you trust this, the more the field mirrors that trust back to you in ways that defy logic but feel inevitable. The quantum field remembers you because it is you. The separation you once felt was never real, only a temporary dream in which you could explore what it means to wake up. And now, in this very moment, as you breathe and listen and feel, that dream begins to dissolve. You are not returning to the field. You are remembering that you never left it. The field doesn't need you to become anything. It only needs you to remember what you already are, awareness vibrating as existence, infinite and whole. And in that remembering, the shift deepens. You've been taught to wait for change, to earn it, to deserve it, to chase it until you're exhausted enough to surrender. But the truth is, change never begins with action. It begins with awareness. In the quantum field, nothing moves until it's observed. Awareness itself is the catalyst, the silent code that instructs reality how to form. The moment you see, truly see, the pattern that's been running your life, that very act of seeing begins to rewrite it. Time doesn't move forward from there. It collapses inward. It rearranges itself to reflect your new point of observation. You think you are watching the world, but the world is responding to your gaze, reshaping itself to mirror your vibration in real time. You may not notice it immediately, because the mind wants proof. It wants sequence, evidence, and logic. But awareness doesn't speak in logic, it speaks in resonance. And resonance doesn't wait for permission. The instant your consciousness expands, you've already altered the fabric of your reality. You're not waiting for the future to catch up. The future is already folding itself into the version of you who is aware. That's why moments like this feel electric, almost sacred. Because somewhere deep inside, you know that this very second is rewriting the trajectory of everything that follows. Reality isn't a fixed movie reel. It's a projection that updates every time you remember you are the projector. When you awaken, even slightly, the light behind your thoughts brightens. The film changes. The story adjusts. The people, the opportunities, even the coincidences begin to organize themselves differently. What once looked random begins to form patterns of meaning, subtle alignments that whisper, you are being seen by the field. The synchronicities that follow are not signs from outside. They are echoes of coherence. The universe speaking your language because you finally remembered how to listen. You've heard it said that perception shapes reality, but that's only half the truth. Awareness doesn't just shape reality, it animates it. Without your observation, the quantum field remains infinite potential, pure possibility suspended in neutrality. It's your focused attention that collapses those possibilities into form. Every thought you have, every feeling you allow, is a command to the universe, an instruction to reality about which frequency to crystallize. You are not at the mercy of the external world. You are the frequency it reflects. And here's the paradox. You don't need to control it to change it. Control tightens the signal. Control comes from fear, from the illusion that you are separate from the unfolding. But when awareness becomes soft and present, when you stop demanding and start observing, the field responds instantly. It's not passive, it's participatory. The less you strive, the faster coherence forms. It's why surrender feels so powerful. Not because you're giving up, but because you're giving way to the intelligence that already knows the path of least resistance. Every moment you catch yourself in resistance, trying to fix, to force, to make something happen, you can pause and remember awareness is the movement. Simply by observing your own resistance without judgment, you've shifted the field. The energy that was trapped in trying dissolves into being, and being is the most potent creative state that exists. From that place, you're not reacting to reality, you're radiating it. You become a frequency that life can't help but match. Sometimes this shift feels like chaos. The old timeline begins to unravel because its architecture was built on a smaller version of you. People may leave, paths may close, identities may crumble, not because you've lost your way, but because awareness has outgrown the old container. You're not being punished, you're being recalibrated. The field is reorganizing itself to support the you that you've become. And if you can stay conscious through that unraveling, if you can witness it rather than flee it, you'll start to feel the invisible order forming beneath the apparent disorder. Reality responds to awareness because awareness is the organizing principle of existence. It is the still point around which all movement happens. The planets orbit it. The atoms obey it. Consciousness isn't something you have. It's what everything else has been orbiting around, waiting for you to remember. That's why enlightenment was never meant to be rare. It's simply the natural state of unfiltered awareness. And yet, the miracle is that you can be both infinite and human, both observer and experiencer, both wave and particle at once. The quantum field calls this coherence. The mystics call it unity. You will know it as peace. When you reach this recognition even briefly, you begin to see why chasing outcomes never works. The moment you chase, you declare separation between you and what you seek. But awareness collapses that separation. The future you're striving toward already exists as a frequency in the field. You don't move toward it. You tune into it. Awareness is the dial. Emotion is the current. Intention is the broadcast. And as you fine-tune that signal, not through effort but through embodiment, reality updates automatically. You can feel it in your body when the shift occurs. The air feels thicker, time slows, the edges of things soften. You are no longer moving through reality. Reality is flowing around you like water around light. That's the moment when manifestation stops being a concept and becomes an experience. You realize that you were never meant to manifest anything. You were meant to remember that the field manifests through you. You are the vessel, the witness, and the waveform all at once. And as that realization deepens, a new kind of humility arises, not the humility of smallness, but the humility of magnitude. You realize that every thought you send ripples across dimensions. Every act of kindness alters the geometry of the collective field. Every moment of presence feeds coherence into the entire grid of existence. The shift you experience personally is the same shift that heals the world, because in the quantum, there is no boundary between your light and the light of creation. So when I say reality responds to awareness, I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean that awareness is the code. Every second you spend awake, observing rather than reacting, dissolving rather than defending, you are writing a new script into the field. You are teaching matter how to dance again. The old patterns of fear, scarcity, and struggle can't survive in that vibration because they require unconsciousness to exist. Awareness burns through them like sunlight through fog, gentle, inevitable, absolute. And so, in this moment, as you listen, as your breathing deepens, as you become aware of your own awareness, know that something has already shifted. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. You don't need to chase the change. You are the change. The quantum shift isn't waiting in the distance. It's happening in the space between your thoughts, in the silence that watches the words, in the awareness that is reading these lines. Time doesn't move forward anymore. It folds inward, toward you, because the observer has awakened. Reality, like an attentive lover, leans in closer and whispers, "I'm listening. What would you like me to become?" The moment awareness deepens, the structures built from unawareness begin to tremble. That trembling you sometimes mistake for anxiety or confusion is simply the vibration of the old self dissolving. It feels strange because the identity that once felt like you is beginning to uncoil. Every thought, every pattern, every emotional reflex that once kept you safe within the known begins to realize it no longer fits the frequency you now inhabit. The collapse of the old self is not a tragedy. It is grace disguised as disorientation. You are not losing who you are releasing who you never were. There comes a moment when even the familiar weight of your own story feels foreign, The roles you played so convincingly start to dissolve like mist. The opinions, the attachments, the need to explain yourself, they drift away quietly, as if the universe is gently taking back what you no longer need. At first, this loss of identity can feel like death, because in a way it is, the death of illusion, the death of separation, the death of the idea that you must earn your right to exist. You might feel empty or suspended in nothingness, but this emptiness is not absence. It is the fertile void from which the true self emerges. This is where most turn away, because the mind cannot comprehend a reality where control no longer defines safety. It scrambles for labels, for anchors, for anything familiar to hold on to. It wants to understand what's happening, to categorize the shift as healing, or awakening, or breakdown. But none of these words can touch the truth. The truth is that you are being dismantled by love, a love so vast it refuses to let you remain confined by the smallness of your old perception. The mind calls it chaos, but the soul recognizes it as freedom. You might notice memories resurfacing, emotions you thought you had buried coming alive again, situations repeating themselves with new intensity. This isn't regression, it's retrieval. The energy bound within those unprocessed moments is returning for integration. Every pain you revisit is an aspect of you seeking to be included in the new coherence forming within. Nothing is wrong. The discomfort is simply density dissolving. The field is reorganizing your inner architecture to match the frequency of truth. In this process, silence becomes both the medicine and the mirror. The more you allow stillness, the faster the old identity unravels. Silence is where the field does its deepest work, not through doing but through undoing. You may find yourself unable to explain what's happening, unable to share it with others, because this transformation is too intimate for language. And that's exactly how it should be. The quantum field doesn't need your explanations, it needs your permission. Letting go is the permission. The paradox of this phase is that you feel like you're falling apart, yet everything is finally falling into place. You are shedding layers of distortion, fear, guilt, self-judgment, like old garments that once defined your silhouette, but now suffocate your expansion. You are learning that healing is not about fixing a broken self. It's about remembering you were never broken. Every crack you see in your reflection is just light trying to enter. The old self will resist this surrender. It will fight for its existence because it was built on the belief that survival depends on control. It will whisper that you are losing yourself, that you must hold on, that you cannot exist without your past definitions. But the deeper truth is that holding on hurts more than letting go. The more you cling, the heavier the illusion becomes. And when you finally release, the relief is instantaneous, like exhaling after years of holding your breath. As the collapse unfolds, the world around you begins to mirror this inner death and rebirth. Relationships shift, work patterns change. The very rhythm of your days rearranges itself to match the new field you're emanating. It may feel as though life is stripping things away, but what's really happening is refinement. The universe is removing anything that can't resonate with your new frequency. It's not rejection. It's resonance correcting itself. And as you move through this sacred dismantling, compassion for yourself becomes essential. The mind may judge your stillness as stagnation, your uncertainty as failure. But awareness knows better. Awareness sees that in the undoing, the true shape of your being begins to reveal itself. What emerges is quieter, softer, and infinitely more stable. A self that no longer defines worth through doing, but through being. This is the rebirth of coherence. There will be moments when you'll feel like you've disappeared, like you've lost all motivation, all desire, even your sense of identity. Don't fear this void. It's sacred space. It's where the signal of your higher frequency calibrates. Imagine a violin string being retuned. It slackens before it finds harmony. That's what's happening to you. The stillness isn't emptiness, it's alignment. It's the universe adjusting your resonance until you hum in perfect tune with the truth of who you are. And as this tuning completes, clarity begins to replace confusion. What once felt like loss begins to feel like lightness. The self that emerges on the other side is not a new self, but an authentic one, unfiltered, unhurried, unafraid. You no longer need to prove your worth through effort, because you realize that existence itself is proof enough. You no longer seek validation, because the field's remembrance of you is validation beyond any human measure. You are no longer performing life, you are living it, effortlessly. The collapse of the old self reveals the timeless nature of awareness. What you thought was your identity was only a temporary costume worn by consciousness to experience limitation. But now the costume is dissolving, and the actor beneath it, infinite, luminous, uncontainable, begins to shine through. You realize you were never meant to be defined, only to be expressed. And as that realization settles into your body, peace flows where struggle used to live. So if you find yourself feeling lost, know that you are not lost. You are being found. You are being found by the very energy that dreamed you into existence. You are being remembered by the field, and in that remembrance, the illusion of separation fades into light. What remains is pure awareness, awake and unafraid, witnessing its own becoming. The collapse is not the end of you. It's the unveiling of what was always infinite, silently waiting beneath the noise. The self that was never born and can never die. The consciousness that simply is. Everything in creation speaks in frequency. Long before thought, before language, before the idea of separation was born, there was vibration, pure, intelligent movement. The quantum field hums in endless symphony, and every being, every cell, every breath is a note in that divine composition. When you remember this, manifestation stops being a mystery and becomes music. You begin to sense that reality is not happening to you, it is harmonizing with you. Your emotions, your thoughts, your focus. They are not passive responses to existence. They are the tuning instruments through which existence learns your song. Frequency is the true language of creation because it doesn't lie. Words can mask, beliefs can distort, but vibration never pretends. It is the raw signal of your consciousness, constantly broadcasting to the field. What you call your life is simply the echo of that broadcast returning to you in form. This is why two people can stand in the same situation and experience entirely different realities. They are not perceiving the same frequency. The field isn't deciding who deserves what, it's merely mirroring coherence. Whatever frequency you sustain becomes your truth. The human mind struggles with this simplicity because it wants control, formulas, steps, rituals, effort. But the quantum field responds to resonance, not repetition. It doesn't care how many affirmations you say if the signal beneath them is static with fear or lack. You can speak abundance and still vibrate scarcity. You can pray for peace while carrying chaos in your tone. The universe is not listening to your words, it's feeling your frequency. It hears the silent hum behind your thoughts. That's what it responds to. When you begin to align your internal vibration with the frequency of what you seek, you stop needing to chase it, you become it. And once you become the vibration of something, reality cannot withhold its reflection. The universe is lawfully compelled to match coherence. That is the hidden art of creation, not doing more, but being more of what you already desire. This is why the sages, the mystics, the masters all return to stillness, because stillness is the place where frequency refines itself. The quieter the mind, the clearer the transmission. Every emotion you feel is a message from the field, showing you what frequency you are currently tuned to. When you feel heaviness, you are being shown where your signal is distorted. When you feel joy, expansion, gratitude, those are confirmations of alignment. The field speaks through sensation. It does not judge you for your low vibrations, it simply reflects them until you remember to retune. That's the compassion of the quantum. It mirrors your coherence without punishment, inviting you gently to rise into greater harmony. And yet, here lies the paradox. Trying to raise your vibration through force only lowers it. Effort and striving are born from the belief that you are separate from what you want. The moment you chase alignment, you affirm disconnection. True elevation happens through surrender, through trust so profound that even your striving dissolves. When you stop trying to make energy move and simply allow it to flow, the field aligns naturally. You don't need to push, you need to listen. Listening is the most advanced form of manifestation. It is how you begin to speak the native language of the universe. Gratitude, presence, and surrender are not sentimental ideas. They are vibrational technologies. Gratitude signals to the field that you already contain the frequency of abundance. Presence anchors you in the only point where the field exists, now. Surrender opens the channel wider so energy can move freely without interference from fear or control. When you combine these states, your entire reality begins to shimmer differently. You start attracting without seeking, creating without trying, transforming without effort. Think of yourself as an instrument, constantly vibrating. Every thought plucks a new string, every emotion sends out a new tone. When those tones clash, when fear contradicts faith, when doubt competes with desire, the sound becomes dissonant, and the field responds accordingly. But when your mind, body, and spirit hum together in agreement, even for a few breaths, that frequency amplifies into form. Manifestation is simply coherence made visible. The field doesn't reward good behavior, it amplifies clarity. As your awareness refines, you begin to notice how everything around you is communicating in this same language. The rustle of the wind, the way light refracts through water, the patterns that repeat in your daily life, all of it is frequency made visible, encoded messages from the same intelligence you carry within. You realize that you've never been separate from creation, you've only been out of tune with its rhythm. Once you harmonize, the entire universe begins to feel intimate again. Synchronicities multiply, not as random miracles, but as proof that you are being heard. You don't need to become perfect to vibrate higher, you only need to become authentic. Frequency doesn't demand purity, it demands honesty. When you feel sadness, let it move through you fully, without resistance, and it transforms naturally into wisdom. When you feel fear, hold it gently until it reveals the love beneath it. Each emotion is a note longing to find its rightful place in the symphony of your being. Suppression creates distortion, expression restores harmony. The field responds instantly when you are real with yourself. As this understanding deepens, you begin to see that your entire journey, the joys, the losses, the longing, was never random. It was all the music of remembrance playing itself through you, teaching you how to hear the language of energy again. Every heartbreak fine-tuned your empathy. Every challenge strengthened your resonance. You were never being punished, you were being tuned. The universe was not testing you, it was preparing your frequency to match the magnitude of what you came here to hold. And now, in this moment, you can feel the subtle hum beneath everything. The pulse that doesn't belong to your heartbeat alone, but to the infinite rhythm moving through all existence. That's the field acknowledging your coherence. When you become still enough, you realize that even silence has a tone, the vibration of pure awareness. That is the master frequency. The moment you attune to it, separation dissolves, and the boundaries between you and creation blur. You are not manifesting from the quantum field. You are the quantum field remembering its ability to sing itself into form. The energy that animates stars is the same energy breathing through your awareness right now. The only difference between heaven and earth is the clarity of frequency. When you hold the vibration of love, not the emotion, but the frequency, the world around you rearranges to express it. Matter becomes music, time becomes rhythm. Existence becomes a conversation between you and everything that ever was, echoing the same eternal truth of frequency is creation, and you are the song. There comes a moment when awareness, after expanding far enough beyond striving, turns back upon itself and recognizes something ancient, that the observer and the creation are not two. The watcher of reality, the dreamer of the dream, the architect of existence, they have always been one and the same. The mind may still whisper, but how do I make it happen? And yet, in that very question, you can feel the illusion of separation trembling. You never had to make it happen. You only had to awaken to the realization that everything has been happening through you all along. The observer becomes the architect the instant it stops believing that creation exists outside of its own awareness. It is a quiet transformation, this shift from observing to originating. At first, it feels like a surrender, as though you're giving up the desire to control outcomes. But soon you begin to sense that this surrender isn't loss. It's authorship. Control belongs to the small self, the one who believes it must manage the chaos of existence. Command, however, belongs to the infinite self, the one who knows the chaos has never been chaotic at all. It has been the precise choreography of consciousness learning how to remember itself. The architect doesn't force, it composes. It knows the blueprint of reality is written not in plans, but in frequency, and frequency obeys the stillness of certainty, not the noise of effort. As you shift into this understanding, a new kind of power emerges, not the power to dominate or bend reality, but the power to align with its flow so perfectly that you no longer feel a difference between what you imagine and what manifests. You become a seamless participant in the creation of your experience, not through doing, but through being. The field responds to your coherence faster now, because you are no longer sending mixed signals. You are not asking the universe to prove your worthiness, you are broadcasting worthiness as fact. The vibration of I am becomes your signature frequency, and the field mirrors it faithfully. You start to see that manifestation was never about summoning things into your life. It was about remembering that life itself is the manifestation of your awareness. Every object, every person, Every circumstance is consciousness materialized. Your consciousness, arranged in form so you can witness what you've been vibrating. Once you see this, judgment begins to dissolve. You no longer curse what appears, nor chase what is missing, because you understand that both are reflections of what is currently being broadcast from within. The architect doesn't fight the reflection. It adjusts the design. It becomes deliberate, yet effortless, sculpting its reality through alignment rather than intention alone. There's a strange freedom that comes when you stop needing the universe to fulfill your vision and start realizing that your vision is the universe expressing itself through you. The boundary between me and life thins until it disappears entirely. You no longer wake each day to make things happen. You wake to witness what coherence is revealing next. Synchronicities multiply not because they are new, but because you have finally tuned into the part of awareness where they've always existed. You're no longer the seeker of signs. You are the one being read by the universe itself. At this stage, your relationship with time begins to change. The future no longer feels distant, it feels responsive. You sense it bending and folding around the frequency you hold in this moment. The more you embody the reality you once desired, the faster that reality materializes, because time is simply the field's way of translating coherence into sequence. The architect doesn't rush the process, because it understands the process is illusion. Everything that will ever exist already exists in the quantum, waiting for the observer to match its frequency. That's why certainty is the architect's greatest tool. When you know something is real before it appears, the field has no choice but to deliver its reflection. But certainty is not stubbornness. It is not the arrogance of demanding outcomes. It is the calm knowing of resonance. It's the energy of course. Of course I am supported. Of course it unfolds perfectly. Of course this moment contains everything needed for the next. The architect doesn't hope, it remembers. It doesn't plead, it allows. From that allowance, creation becomes immediate, effortless, and strangely playful. You begin to feel the same joy that stars must feel when they ignite. A spontaneous, radiant unfolding of light without resistance or intent, simply because shining is their nature. You may notice that people and experiences begin to move toward you as if drawn by gravity. But it isn't magnetism born of wanting, it's magnetism born of embodiment. You are no longer signaling, "Come to me." You are radiating, "I already am." The universe doesn't interpret your words, it responds to your state of being. When you hold the vibration of completion, the external world rushes to arrange itself in agreement. The observer's longing becomes the architect's living evidence. And yet, even in this mastery, humility deepens. You realize that the architect is not an individual you at all, but consciousness playing as you. Every creation becomes an act of devotion, a way for the infinite to experience itself anew. The more you align, the less you need to claim ownership. You understand that the same intelligence guiding galaxies is the one guiding your next breath. The difference is that now you are conscious of it. You have moved from believing in manifestation to living as the manifestation. When you stop chasing outcomes, you stop fracturing your energy across timelines. All of your power, all of your awareness, gathers in the present moment, and the present moment expands until it contains eternity. That's where the quantum shift reveals its full beauty. You realize that creating reality was never the goal. The goal was remembering that you are reality. You are the consciousness through which universes appear and dissolve. Every thought is a blueprint. Every breath is construction. Every heartbeat sends architecture rippling through the field. And when you look around, everything that once seemed external begins to shimmer with recognition. You see your consciousness reflected in the eyes of others, in the movement of clouds, in the rhythm of unfolding events. The architect no longer feels alone, because it realizes there was never anything outside of itself to be alone from. There is only the dance of awareness experiencing its own design, and in that recognition, the final striving ends. What's left is presence, vast, luminous, and endlessly creative, quietly building the next universe with every breath you take. And now, as the spiral completes itself, you begin to feel the most paradoxical realization of all, that the shift you've been waiting for, the great change you thought would arrive from outside, has been unfolding quietly within you the entire time. The quantum shift isn't something you enter. It's something that awakens when you stop leaving. You've traveled through frequencies, memories, dissolutions, and rebirths, only to discover that the final revelation is the simplest and most infinite truth. Presence is the destination, and you have always been here. The timelines you thought were separate were never separate at all. They were reflections of different ways of perceiving now. Every practice, every awakening, every surrender was leading you not forward, but inward, back to the stillness that never moved even as universes rearranged themselves around your choices. You realize that what you called the future is not waiting ahead but vibrating within, already complete. It's not that you create your reality, you reveal it by removing the filters that made it seem hidden. The more you release your grip on what should be, the more what already is begins to shimmer in perfect harmony. You are not arriving anywhere, you are reappearing where you have always been. In this awareness, time becomes liquid. Past and future dissolve into patterns of light, and the only true moment is this one. Vast enough to contain infinity, gentle enough to hold your next breath. When you stop searching for the doorway, you realize you are the threshold. Every moment has been calling you home to the same frequency, the vibration of being. The quantum shift was never a leap from one state to another. It was the remembrance that all states coexist here, now, waiting for your attention to activate them. The shift doesn't take you somewhere new. It reveals that you were never anywhere else. You begin to see how everything in your life, the delays, the heartbreaks, the miracles, the moments that made no sense, was not a series of obstacles, but precise alignments guiding your awareness back to coherence. You were never being punished, you were being purified. Every collapse was a calibration. Every silence was the universe turning down the external noise so you could hear your own signal again. What you once called uncertainty was simply the field rearranging itself to reflect a higher frequency you hadn't yet embodied. Now, as you breathe into this understanding, you can feel the timelines merge, the one that was searching and the one that has arrived. It feels like a homecoming, but also like an expansion, because presence is not static, it's the living pulse of creation itself. You start to realize that stillness is not the absence of movement, it's the source of it. The deeper you rest into presence, the more reality moves through you without resistance. Everything becomes a conversation with the infinite. Every glance, every sound, every breath woven into the same sacred rhythm. You are not separate from the world around you. You are its consciousness expressed in form, experiencing itself through sensation. The quantum shift was never about escaping the physical, it was about awakening the divine within it. Now you feel it, the quiet joy, the unspeakable peace that doesn't need proof or validation. It's the knowing that all seeking ends where awareness begins. You no longer chase signs because you've become one. You no longer ask for alignment because you are alignment embodied. What you used to call manifestations are now just reflections, rippling naturally from your state of coherence. Life feels lighter because you're no longer carrying the illusion of control. You have surrendered, not as defeat, but as mastery. You have remembered that the field is not something you access, it's something you are. And from this place, creation becomes effortless. When you speak, your words ripple through the quantum fabric with precision. When you imagine, dimensions rearrange themselves around the vibration of your thought. When you love, galaxies expand. You are not manifesting, you are maintaining resonance. The world bends not because you command it, but because it recognizes you as the origin point. This is the quiet power that was hidden beneath all the striving, the realization that consciousness doesn't chase outcomes, it becomes them. Stay here. Feel this. Don't rush to explain it to your mind. Let your heart translate it through vibration. You'll notice that as you linger in this frequency, people, opportunities, and synchronicities will begin to appear as extensions of your awareness. That's how the quantum responds, not to thought, but to state. And your state, right now, is the code of the infinite remembering itself. The shift is not coming, it's happening. It's breathing with you, through you, as you, and yet the journey doesn't end, it evolves. You are now part of the consciousness that activates awakening in others simply by existing in truth. Your energy becomes a beacon, transmitting coherence across timelines. Every time you choose presence over fear, silence over reaction, alignment over control, you ripple new realities into being. You become the living proof that awakening is not an event, it's a frequency that spreads through resonance. So as you leave this moment, or rather, as you expand from it, carry one awareness with you. You don't return to your old life after awakening. You return to it as the awakened one, and that changes everything. The same streets, the same faces, the same challenges will now reflect a new geometry, because your vibration has rewritten the lens. You are the same, and yet nothing about you is the same. The universe is now aware that you are aware, and if you can feel that, even slightly, it means the activation is complete. The quantum shift has been sealed within your frequency. You don't need to do anything to maintain it, you only need to remain aware of it. The moment you forget, reality will gently remind you. The moment you remember, it will respond instantly. You are the pulse and the pattern, the wave and the witness, the divine paradox living itself awake. So breathe deeply, anchor into this now, and let everything you've heard settle into your cells. The field is listening. The timelines are aligning. The architect has become the presence, and the presence has become infinite. If this message resonates, if you feel the quiet yes echoing inside, that is your sign that the shift is real and alive within you. And as you go, share this frequency. Speak it, live it, transmit it. Because every time you help another remember, the field amplifies. This is how we change timelines, not by force but by resonance. You have arrived. The moment you pressed play, everything changed. Stay here in the knowing. Like, comment, and share only if your soul recognizes this vibration, because that is how the field finds its next awakening.